crafty friends, welcome to another late night crafting with me, Revati, and welcome to my channel. Well, in Seattle, we are nowhere close to spring or summer, but I was in mood for some florals this evening. Well, it's late to be evening, it's almost 11:20 here, and but yeah, this is our series on late night crafting, so let's just have fun with some beautiful florals. And today we will be stamping one of these, not in black but beautiful ombre shades. Now the stamp set that I'm using today is the Big Botanical stamp set by Simon Says Stamp, and I absolutely love the stamp set. There are two gorgeous floral images in this, some little critters, insects. I'm not a very big insect person. I will definitely run away if these were real, but then they look really pretty on cards. We have some beautiful sentiments. Now these would be perfect for birthdays, thinking of you. You can pair the sentiments, have the happiest birthday or maybe birthday wishes to you. We have some additional elements and little tiny polka dot elements here as well. Now we will be stamping just one of these florals today. I think I'll go in for this big tulip and I'll show you what colors I'll be using. Now for my tulips, I want some pretty pinks. So I have the Bubblegum Dreams Fresh Dye Ink Mini Cubes by Alternate. Now there are beautiful colors on these, and we will be stamping all of the floral petals using these pinks. And for my greens, the foliage, I'll be using this set right here. This one is the Whispering Woodland set. Again, beautiful shades of greens. I'll be using, I guess, these two to create that beautiful ombre effect, and maybe I will bring in a darker shade of green, almost like a dark olive shade. Now this is from the Mediterranean Glow ink pad set. So let's just get started. Now, usually if I'm stamping an image, I would stamp it with black and then color it in, but today we will be stamping these directly onto our panels. Okay, so I will get my stamp wheel, and I have a panel that measures 4 by 5 1/4. Now this is smaller than your standard A2 size card base. Your A2 size card base is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. This is 4 by 5 1/4. So to stamp my image, I decided that I will be stamping this on one edge or the left hand corner of my paper, and the right hand corner we will have our stamped sentiment. Now this is a very simple technique. I absolutely love doing this, especially when I have these kind of stamps, big, beautiful, bold stamps. If you're not very confident stamping directly with your colored inks, you could go in the general way, stamp it with your pigment inks, beautiful heat embossing, and then even, I guess, add watercolors to these beautiful floral details. Now, for today's technique, we will be stamping them directly with our colorful inks. So I'll pick up the the stamp set with the door of the stamp wheel. It's quite sticky, so yeah, my paper got stuck to it, but no worries. I can place it back. There we go. And I will start. Now whenever I'm doing ombre stamping, I like to start with the lightest shade, and then from there we build up color, texture and dimension with the darker shades. So I will be using these 3 shades today: fuchsia, magenta and jasperi. We'll skip the baby pink because I feel that's way too light for the stamping. So I'll start with fuchsia, which is a very bright pink. I absolutely love this pink. Now before I do that, I do want to mask my leaves. I don't want any of that pink to get on the leaves and part of the stem. You could use masking tape, but I prefer using little post-it notes. that works just fine. So I will cover every part of this flower where I don't want that pink to go. And for techniques like these, I prefer using the mini ink pads as compared to the bigger ones, because that gives a lot of control as compared to the big full-size ink pad. Now, compared to these full-size ink pads, I think this is a lot better when it comes to stamping images like these. Okay. Now to stamp my image, what I'm doing is, now since this is the lightest of the three colors that I plan on using now, I will stamp the whole image with this. And don't forget to remove your masking tape before you stamp the image. I just like to use the edge of my sleeve to press it down firmly instead of pressing it with my fingers. I think this gives an even pressure. Okay. Now this is what you actually want to avoid here. You don't want that paper to move. So what I'll try here is I will try to fix it. If not, I guess we'll have to start with another panel and make sure it sticks perfectly to the stamp wheel and right in position. Let's see if that worked. So for that, another thing you can do is, instead of bringing in a whole new paper or a whole new cardstock, we can bring our grid transparency sheet or any transparent sheet for that matter. And I'll just place it on top of this and bring back the image and see if it aligns. If not, we will have to align the image and then carry on from there. So looks like my paper has moved a little, so let's just try to figure out how to get it back in place. Another thing you can do is, instead of placing the paper here in the center, just stick it up to any of the edge of the card panel, so that in case it moves in future, you know that the cardstock needs to butt up to the edge of your stamp wheel. Well, so yes, we've moved this, so I guess I'll just go on and add a new paper. Well, I know it wasn't supposed to happen live, but then that's where mistakes happen and we learn from them. So I will not throw this panel away. I will definitely use this, and probably I'll show you later in the video how we can fix this, but I'm not sure if the ombre would work. I think we can just try again before bringing in the paper. Why not save it, right? So I'll clean my stamp wheel. The ultra sticky mat looks a little dusty. I think it's because of the embossing powder that I was using before I started the live. I was working on another project, and I guess the embossing powder got over it. So these are the little things that come up on lives. If you see me working otherwise behind the scenes, this is something really common that happens to me, and well, I don't mind it, but yeah, definitely not something that I would want for a live session. Okay, so I will stick it there and make sure it's perfectly lined up. I will try to line up the stamp onto this. Let's see if that works. Now before I do that, I will make sure I clean my stamp set perfectly. I don't want any of that pink going out. And so there we have it. Now that's the thing with stamps like these, which have like really beautiful etching but still no proper lines to it. They eventually have a lot more stickiness as compared to stamps which have fine lines. Now let me try my best to line this. If that doesn't work, we will have to move on to another brand new panel. Okay, let's see if this works. I hope this won't pick it up now. Alright, that looks nice and snug there. Now just to be extra careful, what I'm going to do is I'll just stick this panel with some washi tape so that I am absolutely sure it's not going to come out. Okay, there we go. I'm just holding this panel with some purple tape. And let's see if we aligned it properly. Now we are done with shade number 1. Actually, we will move on to shade number 2 and we will do the same exact thing. But with shade number 2, instead of stamping on the entire flower, I will stamp just towards the base. We will leave the tips in the lighter shades. So that is what ombre stamping is, where you create an ombre effect moving from the lightest to the darkest, or maybe the darkest to the lightest. So for my flower, I need the base to be of a darker color as compared to the tips of the petals. Again, I will bring the sticky notes and put it back so that I can stamp Now you will see I'm not taking this to the very edge. I am keeping it concentrated only towards the base and the midsection of the flower. Now this is a square cube, so what happens here is you get those harsh lines. You want to avoid those harsh lines. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ink blending brush and just very lightly brush off at the edges so that the colors blend in seamlessly. If I don't do that, there'll be a sharp line and a sharp contrast between the lighter and the darker shades, and we don't want that. So I will remove my sticky note, and for the moment of truth, let's see if we manage to align the panel. No, I don't think that was aligned properly, so I think we'll have to repeat this all over again. That's no problem. But if you want like a more natural look, I think this also looks fine. And what do you think? Should we go with it or try a new panel? You know what, let's just go with this. Let's see where this takes us. So you'll see here we have the light pink followed by the dark pink just on the base. Very slight variation here. I will go ahead and stamp this again with the same color to bring that brighter pink towards the base of the flower. I will again use my blending brush to bring it in. And now, and I did remove my masking tape. Don't forget to do that. That is another thing I sometimes forget, and sometimes even at the very end of my card, there'll be that masking tape left behind, which ruins the whole card. And we don't want that here. So I like that. I mean, even though it's not aligned properly, but that variation that it gives, I think I'm liking it. So I think I'll keep this and not do a second panel. All right, now for the third color, which is this darkest shade of almost plum pink, we will add as close to the base as possible. Now magenta we added from the base to the middle of the flower, For this one, we'll stay close to the base of the flower. Again, bring in the post-it notes because we don't want any of that ink to go on the stem. And just like we did with magenta, here I'm adding this only to the base. Again, I'll take my blending brush and remove any of the excess lines and make sure it blends beautifully. Alright, so you see the transition of color. We have a very dark base, mid-tones on the middle section, and light pink on the tips of our petals. I love this darker shade over here. I think we can do one more coat of that and then move on to our leaves. So I'll bring back the jazzberry shade and then just ink up the tips, bringing the ink blending brush and removing any of that harsh lines that I see. Now if I look closely, I see there's a bit of color on the stem where I don't want it. I'll just use my fingertips to remove any of that excess color, and now we can stamp this again. And just like that, our flower is ready. I think I absolutely love this color combination. And with that, we can now move on to the stems and the leaf. The same exact technique what we did with the flower. We'll start with a lighter shade of green and then add shading. Now in this case, unlike what we did here, we have the tips light, then the mid-tone, and then the darkest. In this case, we don't do that. Instead, first the lighter shade will go on the overall greenery, and then for the darker shades, we'll just add splotches of ink here and there just to create a variation in the color and not make the stem look staunch green. And that will help create that beautiful ombre effect on our stems and leaves. I will go ahead and first clean my flower, and then we can move on to our stems. Now I'll start with fresh lime, which is this lighter shade of green, and just like we did with our masking, I will mask off the flower area, and you could also use these purple tapes to cover any of that floral image or any part that you want to be masked off. This is layer number 1, so I will add color all over this part. We have our stem and the leaves. I love how gorgeous this looks. And there you go. It's okay that I got my stamp here. I will trim this paper down to be slightly smaller because I really want the big borders. If you don't want that, you could just peel it out and move it aside and then stamp it all over again. I usually like having a big white border around my edges, so I will be trimming this panel down quite small than what it looks right now, but you could leave it as is as well. I will again stamp this image and I'll show you how I stamp the missed portions of the leaves. I will stamp everything again, but this time for the second layer, I'm not stamping the entire thing. I'll add ink just here and there and stamp it so that I get a variation of that color on my stems and leaves. I almost forgot there. Well, it's late night stamping and I am sleepy, so I think we all have been there. So there. So you see the color is okay-ish. I already see a gradient of a little darker green, and here I have some light green because probably I didn't stamp here for the second time, so that's why we get this gradient effect. Okay. Let me move this out a little more so that I get a proper stamping there as well. Okay, now we will go in for the darker green. Here again, I will not stamp on the entire stem and the leaves. I will have portions of these stems and leaves which have the color. So maybe somewhere here, a little over here, maybe towards just the edges of the leaves and tips of the leaves. And a little bit on the stem maybe. Just like that. Now here, like we used a blending brush for the flowers, I don't think we have to do it here, but let's just see how that works. Isn't it absolutely gorgeous? Take a look at that beautiful color that got here on the edges of these leaves. I think I missed a little bit of color there. We can add more color. I'll use the same reindeer moss, which was the darker green. I will cover my flower and I'll bring back the reindeer moss to the very edge and probably add a little more color on this part of the leaf. And that's it, our ombre flower is all done. Now all we have to do is add a sentiment to this and we can call this card done. Now for my sentiment, I thought of using a different stamp set. This is the Elegantly Modern Greetings stamp set, again by Simon. And this comes with coordinating dies, but I will be stamping the happiest birthday or maybe happy birthday on this, or maybe just a hello. What do you guys think? Let's see. Whichever fits best. Birthday I feel would be too long for this. I don't want to cover all this beautiful ombre here, so let's just stamp a big hello there. Now to line up my sentiments, I always like using my grid transparency sheet that just makes sure everything is straight and lined up. And to stamp my sentiment, I want part of the sentiment to overlap with our beautiful stamped image. So that gives a good visual appearance to the card front. And I think that looks good. I can pick up the sentiment with the lid of the stamp wheel. Again, I like to just wipe the sentiment with the tip of my fingers because this again is a solid sentiment. Just like the stamp set, I don't want my paper peeling out. Now to stamp this, I am using the Versafine Onyx black ink. This is a pigment ink, so if you wanted, you could also add some embossing powder, but we will leave it as is for today. I love how beautiful that looks. Let's just stamp it again to get a more detailed impression. I generally stamp maybe 2 or 3 times to get that crisp, bold black impression. But if you want something like this, which is a little light dark, you could definitely stamp it just one. I'm absolutely loving this design right now. Okay, maybe one more layer of that ink and we can call this card front done. All right, so this looks good. We can take it out of the ultra sticky mat. I will remove my tape very carefully, and since this was a pigment ink, I will give it a minute or so to completely dry. I don't want to add or bring it to my trimmer just right now because I don't want any of that ink to smudge. But I will peel this carefully, making sure that the paper does not tear, and I absolutely love how this turned out. It's a very clean and simple card. You could definitely turn this into a shaker card. I think an edge-to-edge shaker would be absolutely stunning, but we will keep it as is. I do want to add a little bit of splatter on this, so let's do that. Let me find my brushes. Okay. So for splattering, I like to use the Pawsitively Perfect Splatter Medium. Now this is something I had never tried before and I absolutely love this medium right now. You just give it a good shake and then we can add our... You could even use your painting brush to just swirl around the pigment. I also have one in gold. So you see the pigment is all settled here. I just like to give it a good shake. And I know that all the pigment has gone in. We will be using black for this because I feel black will just bring out all those beautiful greens and pinks. Now you don't need water for this, unlike for other watercoloring mediums. You just need a paintbrush and dip it in and just tap it. So I will bring a splatter box. This is just my card kits come in this box, so I just store a few of them and make sure I have them handy for techniques like these. Now, splattering is a really fun technique. I love the most because you just play with the colors. It's not something intentional like you want 3 dots here and 3 dots there. No, it's just how fun you can have with these colors. Now to splatter, what I like to do is hold another paintbrush or the tip of my fingers and just add little taps. Now these are very minute tiny little dots. If you want heavy splatters, grab more paint and tap the brushes harder. I do want some bigger drops as well. Now the sentiment, since this is big and bold, I don't need to cover it, but if you have a smaller sentiment, I would definitely add a little bit of a strip or a masking tape to cover my sentiment, but I'm absolutely fine if some of these black drops fall on the hello sentiment. All right, I think I am good with that. I will let this panel dry. It'll not take a long time. It may be 30 seconds to a minute. Till then, we will work on our card base. I decided to go with a standard A2 size top folding card base, a white card base. There you have it. Now, every time I have my card base, I like to stamp my name on it. So while the panel is drying, the ink is drying, we can go ahead and do that. Now this is the stamp that I have, which says handmade with love by RP_Shutterbug. This goes on all of my cards. And again, I stamped it with a pigment ink, so I will give it some time to dry. And we can come to our panel. I love how this panel already looks. The ink is almost drying up, so we can give it a few more seconds and talk about the inks. I love the ombre effect here. Now, if you're new, if you don't know what an ombre effect is, it's like having a gradient of colors. We have the light, medium, and the dark shades, and here also not a perfect ombre, but you do see variations between the light and the darker shades of greens. So this is the beautiful stamp set that we used. This was the big botanical stamp set by Simon's Stamp, and I absolutely love the stamp set. You could definitely color your tulips in so many different colors. I think even yellow would look absolutely stunning for this. How about a yellow and orange? Ombre does not always mean like you need the same family of colors. You could even add maybe yellow tips, and moving towards the base, you could add orange or pinks. You could even play with, for this one, I think I would go with some beautiful purples and maybe even blues. I would even try some beautiful blues. I would keep the greens same for the leaves here as well. Now, I absolutely love this stamp set, and this is something I totally recommend if you love beautiful florals on your stamp or your card fronts. This is a perfect match for that. Now that our splatter and ink looks dry, we will go ahead and trim the panel so that it fits. Now this is already smaller than my card base, but I want to highlight it more, so I will trim it further. I'll be right back. I will trim a 1/4 inch again from each side, so 1/4 or 1/8 inch from each side, so that I get that beautiful border all around the edges of the card panel. So this one measures 3¾ by 5 inch, which is way smaller than the usual 4 by 5¼ inches. I will pop this up using some foam tape. You could use liquid glue, but I like that dimension, and since everything on the card front is flat, so we will definitely have fun popping this panel out. Let me know in the comments if you have any favorite floral stamps or any companies which you like. Then especially when it comes to floral stamps, I love floral cards. Clean and simple cards is more of my forte, and well, clean and simple with florals is something that I absolutely love. And one thing that I never miss is splatters. Like, if even if it's like the simplest card, splattering is one thing that I feel is almost like my signature style. So that is something I would definitely not miss in most of my cards. Maybe say 99% of my cards will have some sort of splatter. And there you have it. Our card is ready. It's a very clean and simple card. Yes, we had some technical issues in the beginning with the alignment, but I am really happy with how this turned out, and I love the pink and the green, and I would definitely give it a try with other beautiful colors like purples and yellows and oranges. Let me know in the comments below what is your favorite color combination, and if at all you want me to try any different colors, I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining me. And well, if you're on the other side of the world, have a good day. Have a great Sunday. If you're watching live here in the United States or this part of the world, have a good night. Thank you again. Bye, guys.